Have you ready?
Oh!
Norman?
This is Mac OS Ken.
Never mind the Fortnite fight, I guess. I'll look at where iPhones come from. And Apple outlines the WWDC schedule. It is Wednesday, the 21st of May, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. 4.5 years later, Epic's Fortnite is back in the App Store in the US. I'm kind of bummed that we're not going to get an answer to my question from yesterday, but okay. A piece from 9 to 5 Mac says the game publisher announced the title's return to the US App Store on Tuesday afternoon. The app also went live again in the Epic Game Store and the Alt Store in the European Union, according to the report. If you do not remember everything that's happened, I would encourage you to listen to Tuesday's edition of Mac OS Ken, because we hit it pretty hard there. Recent events came to a head when the judge overseeing the legal dispute between the two companies said if they couldn't come to an agreement, she would see them in court on the 27th of May. And so, they came to an agreement. A piece from Apple Insider had Apple and Epic filing jointly with the court. That had the two saying that they have resolved all issues presented by a filing by Epic last week. According to their new filing, no further submissions by the parties or action by the court are required with respect to last week's filing. As for what's next, Apple Insider would not hazard a guess. While Tim Sweeney, CEO of Epic, seems pleased for the moment, the site says he didn't get everything he wanted from the whole ordeal. Probably couldn't call Apple pleased either, having to put the biggest thorn in its corporate side back in the App Store and potentially being cut out of sales to boot. But, Fortnite's back in the App Store. I don't have to talk about it much anymore. I think I am the big winner. There was a headline from Bloomberg that was all over the place on Tuesday. Chinese smartphone exports to US plunge to lowest since 2011. Scary sounding. But you know what Apple didn't have in 2011? India backing up iPhone production for the US. Quoting the first paragraph of the Bloomberg piece, Chinese shipments of Apple's iPhone and other mobile devices to the US dived to their lowest level since 2011 in April, underscoring how the threat of US tariffs choked off the flow of big-ticket goods between the world's two largest economies. Smartphone. Oh, interesting. We're saying smartphone in paragraph 2, not iPhone. Anyway, smartphone exports slid 72% according to the report, sharply outpacing an overall 21% drop in Chinese shipments in the US. Again, though, it's tough to know where to put Apple and iPhone and all of that, since Apple's got India as a backup for iPhone, with Foxconn and Tata cranking out units, while Vietnam and other countries in Southeast Asia have picked up production for the Mac, AirPods, and other Apple gear. Now, understanding that I am just a layman, just a guy who reads and thinks about things, I personally would be more worried about the overall 21%, subtracting iPhone. That's because it's hard to imagine that the companies shipping stuff to fill shelves at Walmart and Target have other manufacturers they can turn to in a pinch. And we do seem to be in a pinch. Not that Apple gets to skate. If costs go up, people will likely have less discriminatory income. They don't have as much money to spend. They don't go to restaurants and movie theaters and malls and Apple stores as much. Suddenly those businesses, not making as much money, don't need as much staff. So cut shifts, let some people go. Then the folks who lose those hours have even less discretionary income, which, silly willies, they just call income. drawn out to the ugliest, even if Apple has no problem getting iPhones, could have problems selling them. Also, you may end up with people who can't afford to eat. I did say drawn out to its ugliest. Of course, there is a problem with Apple shifting manufacturing from China to India. That problem spends about half the time at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Speaking last week on the other side of the planet, President Trump called out Apple CEO Tim Cook for moving manufacturing to the subcontinent. Reports said the president said he told Cook, "I don't want you building in India." Of course, Apple doesn't build plants anywhere, but you know that. Despite the president's admonition, a piece from Barron says Apple is barreling through, continuing to increase production in India. And why wouldn't they? Things between China and the US are not settled, and even if they were, tariffs on goods imported into the US from China are set at 30%, while tariffs on goods from India are only 26%. Either way, digging what Apple's doing is Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives. The Barron's piece I mentioned earlier doesn't see iPhone production for the US as an either India or China thing necessarily. Quoting the site, having both India and China as significant bases could give Apple flexibility to split production of its iPhones for the American and global markets, depending on what tariff agreements are reached. As for Mr. Ives, Barron's has him saying, "We believe that Apple could ramp iPhone assembly production to India up to 60 to 65% by the fall in a best-case scenario, but could easily pivot back to a China-driven iPhone strategy depending on the tariff situation and deal negotiations." What the president says he really wants is to have iPhones made in the US. The thing is, that cannot happen anytime soon and would likely drive up prices for reasons many have gone over repeatedly, though apparently not hitting the neighborhood of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. According to Barron's, Ives estimates that making an iPhone in the US would probably lead to a retail price of around $3,500 compared with around $1,000 currently, saying that it would take years to build a production capacity that would make that possible. So your kid has 2 iPhones this Christmas instead of 10, and maybe those cost $2,500 more each. Ives has an outperform rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $270. It was around the end of March that Apple said that this year's WWDC would be held in the second week of June, kicking off on Monday, the 9th. And yet all the sites in my feed spread the word yesterday like it was news. Newses. Yeah, maybe the news was the under stuff, like whether there will be a keynote, and if so, when. You will be shocked to find that there will be a keynote, and it will be at the usual time. Apple issued a press release on Tuesday serving up the deets. The keynote is set for opening day, Monday, the 9th of June at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. People who were not invited to the limited in-person event will be able to watch it as it happens on Apple's site, through the Apple TV app, and on the company's YouTube channel. You'll also be able to play it back later through those channels and get it as a podcast, either audio or video. The platform's State of the Union follows soon after, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. That'll cover new tools on which developers can get their dirty coding hands. Folks can watch that live on the Apple Developer app, on the developer site, and on the Apple Developer YouTube channel. On-demand playback will be available after the conclusion of the stream. Throughout the week, participants will have access to more than 100 technical sessions. They'll be accessible through the Apple Developer app, the developer site, and the developer YouTube channel. Guides and documentation will also be available, walking coders through WWDC's biggest announcements and highlights. Plus, there will be group and one-on-one labs throughout the week. Apple says developers can join group labs in real time or set up online appointments for guidance on topics. The company says Apple engineers and designers will also be available in the Apple developer forums. More info is available on the WWDC 25 site, through the Apple Developer app, on the Apple Developer site, and through the Developer YouTube channel. Pulling something of a repeat from last year, a piece from Bloomberg indicates that one of the biggest announcements from Apple at this year's developer conference will be tied to artificial intelligence. Well, it played well last time. According to the report, the Cupertino company is preparing to allow third-party developers to write software using its artificial intelligence models, aiming to spur the creation of new applications and make its devices more enticing. The piece says Apple is working on a software development kit and related frameworks that will let outsiders build AI features based on the large language models that the company uses for Apple Intelligence, according to people with knowledge of the matter. It also says they're planning on announcing that at WWDC, which is in less than 3 weeks. If they're still working on that, are they really going to announce it? Because I was kidding earlier, that ended up not playing well last time. 19 days and counting. There's new firmware out for AirPods Max. Mac Rumor says there's no word on what's new in the firmware as of yet, if anything. But it's out there, specifically for USB-C versions of the cans. Though we don't know why it's out, we do know how to get it on your head. The piece says firmware can be installed by putting the AirPods Max in Bluetooth range of an iPhone, iPad, or Mac that's connected to Wi-Fi, and then plugging them into charge. It can take about a half an hour for firmware to update. This summer's Apple Originals tentpole F1 does not open until the 25th of June internationally and the 27th of June in Canada and the US. And yet you might be able to see it sooner. A piece from Mac Rumors says the Joseph Kosinski-directed Brad Pitt starer will see advanced screenings at IMAX theaters globally at the start of opening week, Monday, the 23rd of June. According to the report, the film will show at 7 p.m. on the 23rd at 400 IMAX theaters around the world. Tickets for the preview IMAX screenings and the regular release are said to be on sale now. Second season of the Seth Rogen, Rose Byrne Apple TV Plus comedy series Platonic has gotten a first look. It's also gotten a teaser and a premiere date. The Cupertino streamer issued a press release with those on Tuesday. Season 2 joins the pair as their characters contend with new midlife hurdles, including work, weddings, and partners in crises. The duo tries their best to be each other's rock, but sometimes rocks break things. All of the first season is available to stream now, of course. 10 episodes planned for Season 2. The first 2 of those will hit Apple TV Plus on Wednesday, the 6th of August. And finally today, something rather original from Apple for the Peanuts gang. In a second press release on Tuesday, Apple TV Plus announced Snoopy Presents a Summer Musical. Billing it as the first Peanuts musical in over 3 decades, the 40-minute special will feature songs from Emmy Award-nominated composer Jeff Morrow and Emmy-nominated songwriter Ben Folds. Snoopy Presents a Summer Musical hits Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 18th of July. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can find me on Mastodon, macOSKen at mastodon.social. You can also send me an email, info@macosken.com. Until next time, That is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
What's shaking, Norm?
All four cheeks and a couple of chins, Coach.